All right, welcome to yet another video on Women's Cricket Central. We're 2 days away from arguably what would be the marquee clash of the tournament. It's India taking on Australia in what is also the final match of the group stage, a match which is potentially a must win for India because, yeah, the chances of making it through to the semi finals hinges on how they do there, assuming that South Africa will defeat Bangladesh. And of course, for Australia, it is yet another game because in all likelihood, based on the performances that we've seen so far, they have made it through to the semi-finals. Of course, we've got Jeet joining us like always. Jeet, once again, India versus Australia, the match of the tournament. Excited for that.
Big clash now. Absolutely big clash after what India did against South Africa, which is something that was on the expected lines given what we had discussed before the tournament started. So, yeah, it's a big clash, but I still just feel that, there is plenty of stuff that's actually going against India because Australia right now are sitting pretty. They know they have qualified. They are through. They don't have a lot to worry about. But, of course, Aussie still being a side who wants to win each and every game. They are going to push India big time, and India have a massive challenge on their hands.
It's going to be a massive challenge. And yeah, in all fairness, we'd also predicted that in the pre-tournament previews, like Jeet mentioned, that India will have to win that game versus Australia because South Africa would have started favourites versus them. And that's exactly what we saw happen. The match is coming live from Lord's, though, Jeet. And yesterday, we saw how India took on Bangladesh. Not the most comprehensive of wins, but a win nonetheless, which was really required for them. And based on the 11 we saw there, the likes of Renuka Singh Thakur, the likes of Nandini Sharma, the likes of Radha Yadav, expecting any changes for the Aussie clash?
I won't rule out any changes because I'll tell you honestly, I was not expecting so many changes against that game against Bangladesh as well. So it came as quite a bit of a surprise, some of those changes, in particular Prema Rawat going out, Radha Yadav coming in. I was not really anticipating stuff like that to happen suddenly out of nowhere. So over here also, I won't rule out entirely any changes entirely because we still have quite a few question marks again coming out of this Bangladesh game as well. Certain roles haven't been nailed, certain gaps haven't been filled. So if there are a couple of more changes that again happen for this encounter because of what the opponent is, the fact that it's being played at Lords and there's a slow factor that comes into play as well, it can happen, man. With this Indian management, I cannot rule out anything.
Yeah, it definitely can happen. But talking about the changes that we think should happen, because you spoke about Lords, we've spoken about Australia. I mean, we're yet to go in detail about the Aussie side, but yeah, just the performances speak for themselves. What are some names that you think should play and some names that you think should miss out versus Australia?
Okay, so I'm just going to stick to the fact that Australia have certain weaknesses and the fact that we are playing at Lords for what I think would be an evening game. Just sticking to that, I feel that India needs to fill as many gaps as they can to whatever extent they can. And in order to do that, they'll need to make quite a few hard decisions. And those hard decisions, I feel, will have to happen in all the facets, be it batting, be it bowling, or be it fielding. Coming to the fielding side, I feel, look, I mean, forget the drop catches. They part of the parcel, they've happened in the past, they happened against Bangladesh, and they'll probably happen again against Australia. You can't change that. But are there any fielding positions that you're looking at and thinking that this is a bit of a weaker spot and how we can fix that? That's where I potentially look at somebody like Yastika Bhatia. That knee surgery, we can clearly see, whenever she is chasing the ball at fine leg, she's literally hobbling away behind the ball. She's not looking 100%. So do you want that sort of a gap also to be filled with a better player? And that's what I feel that somebody like Bharti Phul Malik could be a good addition. She's not the best fielders, but at least she's fit enough. And that's the only thing that I'm considering over here. Let's not forget Yastika has struggled a bit with the bat as well. Some of the shots have been good, but the way she's getting dismissed is not so convincing either. So it could be a factor. It could be something that India can look upon. And leaving out Yastika for this particular game would make a lot more sense when you look at the batting order, the kind of weaknesses that we can target against Australia. On the fielding forefront, Yastika out. But now coming to the bowling forefront, I feel the fact that India left out Prema Rawat after just one game was quite a bit of a surprise because India played her against South Africa when she was completely undercooked. She has just reached the UK. She plays the first game. She's undercooked, bowls 2 overs for 21 runs. It doesn't work out really well because she doesn't end up finishing off a quota as well. Come at the game against Bangladesh, she's left out. After just one game, she is left out, and then comes Radha Yadav. So it doesn't make any sense to add her again. Even though the fact that Australia has a bit of an issue with wrist spin, I would still not consider that option at Lords. If this was again being played at Manchester, maybe I'd probably have given it a second thought. But at Lords, I don't really want to be playing Prema Rawat, given what Radha Yadav has already done. Now, another factor here also being the venue in itself. I've been harping upon that as well. But with Lords, forget the slow factor. I'll also go down to the dimensions. We had one game take place over there between England and the West Indies, and the square boundaries were fairly short, 58 meters and 65 meters. Now, I personally believe that this particular game will be played on the same strip, and the straight boundary over here was the longest at 71 meters. Now, with Radha Yadav, we have often seen that she overpitches the ball time and again. She doesn't look at what the batter's strength is. Even if the batter's strength is to go down the ground, she provides the perfect length of those overpitch deliveries that allows the batters to go down the ground. But at Lords, with the straight boundaries being 71 meters, I feel it could be a good matchup. Let's not forget Elise Perry. Elise Perry is somebody who loves to target the long on region. There is Georgia Wall as well who likes to target that long on region. So with Radha Yadav, it could actually work in India's favor. Her natural lens of actually pitching the ball up could actually turn out to be a really good one. One miss hit, you have a fielder at long on, somebody like Jemima Rodriguez, and they can be held. So from that perspective, also I feel it could be a better choice, and I just don't see any rationale in just going back to Prema Rawat after having left her out against Bangladesh.
Also, sticking to Prema Rawat, you spoke about how had this been Manchester, you probably would have still given it more thought. But because it's Lords, you don't see Prema Rawat playing that big a role. Why do you say that? Because Lords is also historically not known for its pace and bounce. It's still a relatively low and slow surface. So you could potentially see someone like a Prema Rawat also playing a role there. So why do you think the surface won't suit her?
Yeah, look, first things first, I still feel the dimensions probably doesn't work the kind of lens that she bowls. It's probably going to go against her. And just the fact that she's completely undercooked after one game, if you're leaving her out, I don't see any point. Having said that, I get that Radha Yadav also played just the first game, but at least she played those warm-up games as well where she had delivered well. So she's, of course, nursing an injury, but that's still a different thing. At least she has been with the side. She has been consistently involved in the field as well. With Prema Rawat, again, I'm not too sure about it. And Lords, in terms of their historical data, in terms of risk and everything, I don't feel it's a venue that suits them so much. We saw Afi Fletcher also bowl against England. She didn't turn out to be that effective either. So it's just probably the venue factor. Dimensions, yes, a bit, but even the historical factor perhaps goes against, adding risk spin at this particular venue.
All right, let's see what do India go ahead with, because I'm still slightly biased towards Prema Rawat primarily because, like Jeet mentioned, Australia tend to sort of have lesser or poorer numbers versus Rispin. They tend to sort of give away more wickets, and also there would be a bit of that. I won't exactly call it mystery, but they wouldn't have faced a lot of Prema Rawat because she's not played a lot of WPL either. So somewhere things like that could play to India's hands. But yeah, there's also the fact that she hardly has any experience at the highest level, and straight up playing versus the mighty Aussies in a World Cup encounter is not going to be easy on her nerves. But talking about the pace attack, Zojit, we saw Nandini Sharma and Renuka Singh Thakur take the field in Manchester versus Bangladesh. Do you expect those two paces to start versus Australia too?
I don't think so that both will start. There is an outside chance that Renuka Singh might be left out. She, of course, did take a wicket, but we still saw her being completely out of rhythm. And for somebody bowling at 9,900 kph over here, I feel she's going to be taken down by the Australians very easily. So that's also a spot that I feel is up for grabs. Whether India go on to back Arundhati as that particular second pacer or they go for the extra pace of Kranti is something that we'll have to wait to find out. I personally would play neither of them. It's again my personal choice, and I don't really see that happening. But I just feel there is more value for a pacer like Kranti got at this particular venue with a slow factor, somebody who has the ability to seam the ball both ways, could actually use it really well to her advantage. Not to forget, Kranti has been amongst one of the fastest pacers as well at this venue. So it's a good variety for India to have, because Renuka is somebody who operates in that 99 to 101 range, and the same range is the same. It's pretty much the same, right? The same thing applies to Arundhati as well. Nandini is faster, but you get so many of those off-pace deliveries as well. So how many of these deliveries or how many of these variations are really going to be effective at this venue? I'm not too convinced. So as a point of change, I would want Kranti God to be one of the first additions to this particular side as a pacer. Second, I would back Arundhati from the perspective that she's a better fielder. She can add a little bit with the bat. She has not done that historically, but at least she has the capability. And I just feel that she's somebody who can come in decently handy after the power play is over. right now I felt that she has been playing a very different role in this particular T20 World Cup. But with Kranti God on the side and with India having to make certain tactical tweaks where I personally feel that going spin heavy in the power play would ensure that Arundhati is introduced after the power play. And I think that is where she could play a pretty handy role. Also, historically, I felt that Arundhati has had the edge over Australians in terms of her performances. Against other teams, she has struggled a lot more, but for some reason, against Australia, she does find her best. So I just feel it's a better combination to have Arundhati and Kranti rather than having Renuka or Nandini. With Nandini, again, look, I'm not against her or I don't have any issues with what she has done so far. I just felt that, if she was not injured, then there was no logical reasoning as to why she didn't play either of the warm-up games. But those two warm-up games I felt were really important for somebody like Nandini so that she gets into the groove, she gets a hang of this particular stage, and she knows the kind of role that she has to play for India in the main tournament. But for whatever reason, she didn't play either games. And now we are still seeing her, kind of struggle a little bit against, some of the bigger teams. Against Bangladesh also, I felt she became a little bit predictable in terms of a slow ball variations after the power play as well. So I just feel it's something that probably may not work as well at Lords, especially against Australia. So
Anurati, I definitely see her slotting in right back for Renuka Singh Thakur because, like you said, she's actually done well versus Australia, and she's also got a lot more experience playing T20 as for India in the recent past. Renuka Singh Thakur is still coming back from an injury, and I don't think we've still seen her in full flow. That rhythm is missing slightly. With Kranti Gaur, it is an interesting proposition because I get where you're coming from. The conditions that we'll get to see at Lords, especially because London itself is going through a massive heat wave. So the conditions, the weather is also going to be really hot. You can expect the surface also to be really dry. And dry surfaces usually tend to aid movement of the surface, so which is sea movement that we're talking about, and that's something that Kranti Guard has shown the ability for or an affinity for compared to any of the other paces that the Indian bowling attack possess right now. And that's why I think she could be very she could be genuinely very threatening, and we've seen that versus Australia as well. Like, my mind goes back to the three match ODI series that India had played versus Australia before the 2025 World Cup. I remember her sort of getting two balls to sort of jack back in versus Elisa Healy versus Elise Perry. So that is definitely something that could, cut some of their batters in half and potentially even get them a wicket or two, if not more. But will India actually go ahead with it? Because we're talking about getting rid of both their pacers who played the last game and, sort of replacing them with these two. I think that's too radical a change in some sense for someone like them. Although there is a lot of merit in doing something like this, just going by how the Indian think tank has functioned historically, fair to say at best we'll see one pacer being replaced, and in all likelihood that would be Renuka Singh Thakur with Nandini Sharma holding on to a spot. What do you think, Jeet?
no, but to be fair, look, it's not about this being radical, but look, India started with Arundhati and Kranti. They started the campaign with these two players, and
Yeah,
then slowly each position or each bowler started getting replaced, and we have now reached a stage where neither Arundhati nor Kranti features in the playing 11. It's two different pacers altogether. So you can't rule it out entirely with this Indian management. You don't really know what they are thinking. So if they are smart enough to pick certain things up or certain weaknesses and add the winning factor into the picture or add the opposition factor into the picture, they could as well change both those spots, because right now at least we haven't had any encouraging signs from at least Renuka. Nandini has been decent, but are you really willing to risk her against Australia in a crucial encounter, which is a must-win game? You want experience. Arundhati adds that experience. Kranti has much more experience than Nandini Sharma. So it's something that I won't rule out. I mean, the Indian management has been really weird in terms of their approach when it comes to selection. So when the entire pace attack can get changed, from game 1 to game 4, then it could as well happen in game 5 as well.
I mean, I get where you're coming from because, in a way, we're essentially trying to say that because there's no clarity on what the pecking order is, so we might as well see Arundhati and Kranti playing because, yeah, there was no method to the madness that at least we could make sense of in terms of the changes that they made over the course of their previous 4 games. And fair to say, yeah, they might as well go with these options. And yeah, and that is a very real possibility. So let's see if they actually go through with something like this. But should they go through with something like this? So we're talking about a bowling attack that consists of Arundhati Kranti, hypothetically, along with the sprint trio of Radha Adavshri Charni and Deepti Sharma, with the offspin of Shafali Verma to boot. Knowing this bowling lineup, Jeet, and also assuming that Australia will be fielding a full-fledged 11, which includes the likes of Beth Mooney, Phoebe Litchfield, all of them fit and raring to go. What are some matchups that you're looking at when it comes to targeting the Australian batters? Because they've been phenomenal this tournament. Look at non-boundary strike rate, look at boundary percentage, look at run rates across phases. They are topping the run charts on each of these metrics. So it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it won't be easy, that's for sure. But assuming that Beth Mooney is fit and even Phoebe Litchfield comes back in the side for this particular game, I'm just assuming, that the top four is going to be Beth Mooney, Georgia Wall, Phoebe Litchfield at number three, and Elise Perry at number four. Now, with this sort of a top four, I feel that going spin heavy in the power play is really important. Now, Dipti Sharma is somebody who has been struggling at the death for a long time. We have seen that in the WPL as well. Like, it doesn't make any sense to give her a couple of overs in the last 3 or 4 overs. She more often than not ends up conceding a lot of runs. When it comes to the power play bowling, I feel she turns out to be really effective. And she's really, really good against LHBs. Against RHBs, it's a different topic altogether. She struggles a lot, but I feel when it comes to bowling to LHBs, I feel she's amongst one of the best in the business because she knows how to use the angles well. And she's really, really smart when it comes to adjusting her lines and lengths. So quite often we see, most of the right arm off spinners when bowling to the left-handed batters prefer to go around the wicket. But if you have observed, Nipti is one of the few such off spinners who operates from over the wicket as well to certain left-hand batters. And I'm sure against Beth Mooney also she'll do the same. She's done that in the past as well. She'll probably do it over here again. And I think that's a very, very smart move against somebody who likes to use their feet so much against off spin or spin in general. Now, coming to Beth Mooney, I know she has cut down significantly on using her feet, but she would still be tempted. Those slightly slower deliveries on good lengths or short of good length, it's going to drive her out of the crease for sure. And Dipti has done historically well against Beth Mooney as well. So I just feel the early introduction of Dipti Sharma could actually be a smart call over here. It could work against Georgia Hall as well, having a cow corner and long on in place. She does hold out over there quite often. But it's majorly to dismiss Beth Mooney specifically. If you get rid of Beth Mooney, it's getting rid of that pillar, the one major pillar that Australia has, who generally bats long, who holds one end up, gets to the 15-16 over, and then just accelerates big time. So if you get rid of Beth Mooney, it could make a huge difference to the overall score of Australia. So just in general, going spin heavy would be really handy. So introduction of Dipti Sharma. With Phoebe Litchfield coming in, again, I feel Dipti could play a big role. Against Phoebe, I still feel that she's somebody who will probably operate around the wicket to her. Phoebe, again, is another batter who uses her feet so much. She just cannot stay still. And I think in the preview, I had mentioned about two batters who get out the most when using their feet against spin. One was Phoebe Litchfield out of the two. And she still has that habit. She hasn't featured a lot in this World Cup, just the one game, but she also has that habit. And Dipti, with her smarts against LHVs, I feel could actually dismiss her as well. So if India go bang bang in the power play, getting rid of the two left-hand batters, it will completely open up India's game with the right-handed batting lineup that Australia has got. It's directly going to be potentially Nicola carry down the order unless if she's promoted, and Sophie Molyneux, who is generally not playing that batting heavy role in this particular side. So once the RHBs walk in comes Sri Charni, in comes Arundhati, in comes Radha Yadav. I think that is something that would set the game up for India really well.
Vijit, Sri Charni especially, has been in the form of her life. She's right now the highest wicket taker, standing high and mighty at 12 scalps right now. Could she also be someone, who could be used to target Phoebe Litchfield and Beth Mooney, despite the whole SLA versus LHB matchup? Because you spoke about going spin heavy in the power play. Do you see her also being a potential threat for the Aussie Southpaws?
Yeah, look, I'm not a major believer of this LHB versus LAO thing or RHB versus RAO thing, but I still feel that when you have somebody who has done really well against left-hand batters in Dipti Sharma, you don't really need a Sri Charni. I still feel Litchfield and Beth Mooney are much better against left-arm spinners, although Beth Mooney did get out to Sadia Iqbal, but I think she probably wouldn't have expected that bounce that Sadia got. But with Sri Charni, I still feel that she's really important to the Indian side against Australia's middle order. I know there is the addition of Radha Yadav, so it allows Sri Charni to bowl a couple of overs in the power play if required. But I still feel that when you have got Dipti Sharma, it's better to get the overs out of her quickly rather than banking upon her at the death.
And assuming Kranti and Arundhati feature for Team India, Shafali Verma, does she get to bowl or do you see her not bowling much that day?
I have no idea why Shafali has been bowling so much, although she has done a good job. But
Yeah.
I still want to bring out the best bowlers right away. I don't want the part timer to be beginning for me. Yes, it could land to a wicket. I'm not denying or just saying no to that particular possibility as well. But with Kranti and Dipti, I just want to unleash the best matchups right away. Shafali only if required. That is after the power play. Or in the power play, if Dipti bowls a couple of overs and if she's not able to dismiss Beth Mooney or able to take any single wicket, then maybe an over of Shafali would make sense. But I'm not starting my bowling with her, that's for sure. So I'll just use her if she's required.
Interesting. Talking about the Indian batting lineup as well, Jeet, Smriti Mandana has scored 250s, but unfortunately also encountered a failure versus Bangladesh in the last game. How do you see her, taking on someone like an Ash Gardner? Because that is going to be one matchup that will be playing on everyone's minds, including her.
Yeah, that will be the case. Look, at least the one thing that I've observed for the last probably 9 to 10 T20 years that India have played is whenever the opposition starts with a pacer, it's generally Smriti who takes strike. And whenever they start with a spinner, it's generally Shefali who takes the first ball. So assuming that, look, I think it really depends upon which end does, team starts their bowling from, because there will be that slope factor coming in play. So Kim Garth, takes a new ball, or Ash Gardner takes a new ball. We don't know, because we don't know which end will be used for the first over. I just feel that you've got to be really smart with your choices, and you need to be aware of what your positive matchups are and your negative matchups are. We've seen this in the WPL. The smarter way to go about it for Smriti Mandana is just to take a single, hand over the strike to Shafali Verma and let her do the damage. As simple as that. I was just going through some of the records for Ash Gardner against all the batters, and Shafali Verma has got the best record against Ash Gardner. She has smashed her. It's an insane record. So when somebody has got the edge over a particular bowler who's your weakness, the smarter thing is always to take a single and let the other batter do the job. But if they can't, then I'm not too sure. But because in the past, at least in WPL, I believe I observed certain things with Smriti and Ash Gardner, the battle in particular here, where your two outfielders, like where they are stationed. So there is no point for you to be still playing the attacking game looking for your boundaries. Even if the ball is away from your hitting zone to hit it to the outfielder for one, try to go for it. If it's outside the off, just don't go for the big shot, because you're probably going to get dismissed with that. And that is what has happened in the past as well. So it's more about Smriti really being smart with her matchups. The same thing actually applies to Shafali Verma as well here, because we have seen Sophie Molyneux also take the new ball quite often. And she does that to get the right-handers out. And again, similar to the Mandana versus Ash Gardner matchup, the Sophie Molyneux versus Shafali matchup is also similar, where Shafali has struggled a little bit against Molyneux, whereas somebody like Mandana has done much better. So it's more about the pair knowing what their strengths are and weaknesses are, communicating and being really clear in their head as to what they need to do.
You spoke about Sophie Molyneux. Another name that Shefali will have to contend with will be Kim Garth, because she's someone who moves the new ball prodigiously, and we know Shefali Verma and her struggles versus the incoming delivery. Although, I mean, this time around, she started off well in the World Cup. We've seen her score a boundary first or second delivery each time. But also, more often than not, she's faced the spinner first up. Expecting spinners to start from both ends, or do you see Kim Garth sharing the new ball with an Ash Gardner?
No, it has to be Kim Garth. I mean, if you have Kim Garth and if you don't toss the new ball to her, then I don't think there is any point in having Kim Garth in the side. So, in fact, I won't rule out Australia also opening their bowling with Kim Garth and Nicola Carey in this particular game. I know Nick Carey hasn't bowled at all, but it's a perfect combination of an outswing bowler and an in-swing bowler. Kim Garth predominantly swings the ball away from the right-handers, and she has been really effective in doing that in this particular tournament. Nick Carey hasn't bowled yet, but she could be a good matchup, to kind of have bowling from the other in tandem with Kim Garth as an in-swing bowler. So I won't rule out pacers, starting for Australia from both ends. I know there is a Lucy Hamilton as well, whom they've actually opted for, but I'm not too sure whether she's going to start or not. If she does, yeah, even she could be an option here.
And lastly, Jeet, you spoke about potentially someone like a Bharti Fulmali filling in for Yasika Bhatia primarily because of her fitness concerns and not being effective enough on the field. Should that happen, then who do you see slotting in at number 3, and how do you see that middle order panning out for Team India?
So against Australia, the one thing that I've noticed for several years is the discipline of the pacers whenever they are bowling to a right hand, left hand combination. They err a lot. They just lack the basic discipline. You pick any pacer that you want, from the Australian side. Everybody struggles for discipline with their line. And we saw that with Kim Garth as well against Pakistan when she bowled to Muniba Ali, and she was struggling with her outswingers, which is basically in swingers to the left-hander. She was just swinging it down the leg side, ball after ball. And I think that was one of the things that actually ended up injuring Beth Mooney. They were too wide and it ended up clipping her fingers, and she aggravated the already intense injury that she had. So it's something that has happened in the past. It is something that can happen as well over here as well. It's just about India being really smart. So in order to combat that, I feel that I know it's a very funky move, and I know it's not going to happen. Now I'm leaving out Yestika Bhatia for Bharti Fulmali. So of course Smriti Mandana and Shafali opens, but I feel that if Smriti Mandana is the first batter to get out, don't be hesitant in promoting Dipti Sharma. I know it's a completely out of the box call, but Dipti with the bat technically is a very solid player, and she's somebody who can actually throw Australia off their plans. Because you look at Smriti Mandana, you always think that okay, she has a weakness against off spin. But with Dipti, you cannot really think of a specific matchup that could work against her, and Australia probably won't be prepared for it. Now, Dipti, of course, has the experience of playing here with the London Spirit, so she's familiar with this particular venue, and she has done pretty well over here as well. And as a batter, I still feel we've seen that in the WPL as well, right? When she was promoted for the UP Warriors, batting at number 3 or 4, a couple of those knocks were absolutely outstanding. So it's not the ability that we question with Dipti or her technique that we question with Dipti, it's the intent part. That's the question that we always have with her. At number 3, if Australians are thrown out of their plan A, it could actually end up working in our favor or in India's favor. So Dipti, with her technical ability, can take down, beat Ash Gardner, Sophie Molyneux, or beat any particular pacer. It could be a move that could work really well. Now, assuming if Shafali gets out, then I feel Jemmy would make a lot more sense at number 3. And then from there on, we have to see how we can go about it. But I just feel that Dipti at number 3 could actually add a lot of value rather than her batting down the order.
I mean, I've been a big supporter of that move, Deepti Sharma batting at number 3, irrespective, and I can see why that can work, at a venue like Lords, especially given the opposition. And Deepti Sharma is also someone who's got that, big game temperament. She's someone who relishes oppositions like Australia. So it'll be fun to watch something like that. So I guess, yeah, we've spoken about a fair bit in terms of how India can try and look to beat Australia. Of course, now there are no guarantees in sport, and there are definitely no guarantees when it comes to defeating a side like Australia. So, Jeet, if you had to put a finger on how you see India stacking up versus Australia and what their odds are, where do you stand?
Look, assuming they are probably going to field the same 11, I don't see such a strong chance at all. But if they are able to, identify some of the things that we just discussed, then I personally at least still feel they would have a better chance. I think one of the things that we didn't touch upon was a toss as well. I think what is really important upon winning a toss for a year at this particular venue, and given the fact that we have a 7 p.m. IST start, is to bowl first. Look, it goes against the convention that you are a spin heavy side, so bowling second makes a lot more sense. But with Australia, given the fact that all the 11 players can bat, I always feel that it's better for a team to put them in first, because that is when they'll take some time to assess the conditions. Each and every batter will take some time to assess the conditions, and because they won't have a target in front of them, they will pace it differently as opposed to when they are chasing. And if they know they have a certain target to chase, they can just go big all the way through to number 11. It's a lot more easier. Plus, they would be a lot more familiar with the conditions as well. You dismiss 4 batters, 5 batters, 6 batters, it doesn't matter. There is still a Nicola Carey walking in at number 8 and Alana King at number 9, Sophie Molyneux at number 10. Doesn't matter. Put them in first. I know it's a use surface. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Just put them in first, restrict them to 170, 175, and you can actually win the game. Now, what happened in that game between Australia and South Africa wasn't so different. South Africans did a terrific job. They were able to restrict Australia to a decent total. It's just that it was a use surface. It just got slower and slower, so it became really hard. But we could see the glimpses of that. Australia was restricted just 170 odd in that particular game. So you can chase it down over here where the pitch is going to be much better. Historically as well, whenever India's went on to win against Australia, I just checked some of the numbers. Most of them have come when we have chased. So historically also, that is something that has worked much better for this particular Indian side. So I think there is probably no harm in doing that. It's a use surface, so just don't get lost in that particular thought that, it's a use surface, so let's just bat first, put the runs on the board in a major clash or in a big clash, and then look to defend that. Against Australia, I don't think you should be doing that.
Yeah, that's a very fascinating point, and one that I completely agree with. In fact, I was discussing this during our watch-alongs on Women's Cricket by JB as well. So folks, do check that channel out as well. We'll be doing watch-alongs for all India games. And I agree with you, because one thing I also strongly believe is that India's best chance at winning is if Smriti, Jemmy, either or both fire for Team India. If that doesn't happen, then it's definitely going to be curtains for their campaign. And both of them are better suited chasing for India, knowing a target, even if it's above par, even if it's not 170, even if it's 190. I still believe India stand a better chance at chasing 190 than say defending 180 or 190, because like Jeet said, they've got 11 batters, and I don't think India even has the bowling lineup to try and defend something like this. Had this not even been an Australian side, had this been a South Africa, I would have still not fancied India's chances of defending, simply because I don't think India's bowling attack inspires a lot of confidence that way. So that's also something to keep in mind, and it'll be very fascinating to see. Jeet, you spoke about how should they make the changes that you want them to make, and should they also win the toss. Let's assume everything goes in their favor. Chuck winning the toss, let's assume they are bowling first like we want them to, and they've made all the changes that we've asked them of. How much, or what do you think would then the odds be? Like, then what are their odds in that case?
Probably still 60% in Australia's favor. No matter what you do, no matter how many holes you try to fill, you can't account for certain factors that happen during the game. One of them being, of course, the fielding. And when you can have such a bad outing against a team like Bangladesh, then in a high pressure game against Australia, you can't rule that out completely either. So, even if all these things work in India's favor, or if all these things are actually implemented by India, I still see Australia as a favorites. It would be stupid to not see them as a favorites irrespectively.
If anything, I'm actually surprised you've been a lot more lenient on India, because I still feel, despite all of this, I would at best give them a 25 to 30% chance, because Australia start as resounding favorites over here simply because of the kind of 11 that we'll see them field, and also importantly the recent form. They've been dominant against each of the four teams they've played so far, and there's no reason why that wouldn't continue to be the case versus India, despite them being the defending champions, albeit in a different format. Anyways, that's that from this video where we spoke about how India can beat Australia. And let's see if India actually are able to do any of or implement any of these changes or tactics that we spoke about. And importantly, will India be actually able to defeat Australia and make it through to the semi-finals? Until then, it's a goodbye from both of us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you follow Jeet Vachirajani on X. Make sure you follow Women's Cricket Central on YouTube and Instagram. And we will join you guys very soon.